But when you take a Sharpie, just draw a line on the fender, hand her a Sawzall, and say, cut that line. You'll figure it out. What if I break it? Yeah, that's the point. Cut it, break it, figure it out. I love a good deal when it comes by. I can have plans set for everything for a car, but when a good deal comes up, I just have to jump. Why not? I had a Mark IV Volkswagen Golf, base model, low miles. It was a field car. I was daily driving this thing. It was automatic and locked up in a field, so I did a manual swap and drove it for a year. Hydroplane wrecked the car. And kind of in my travels, I had come across a pair of Mark II GTIs. One of them already had a cage in it. The other had a 2-liter bottom end, Euro 16 valve head, big ITB carburetor setup. Like, this thing had the potential to be mean. And I was like, okay, this is gonna be pretty sweet. But like, I don't like carbs. There's something pure and something beautiful about driving carbureted vehicles. It is not in it for me. I don't have the patience. I have patience for wiring, but not for carbs. And so I ended up selling the engine out of that. And I was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing with the shell. And then when I wrecked the Mark IV, I'm like, oh, I've got a modern EFI engine. And then I'm like, oh, I've got a turbo manifold. And I was like I staged everything up to build a really cool car. And then a friend of mine calls me and says, hey man, are you still selling this, junker car you've got listed? I'm like, no, you don't want to buy that thing, man. Just don't. Like, no, I know you're not going to have the time and the space for it in your life. Don't buy that. He's like, well, I just wrecked my Miata. I'm like, are you okay? He's like, I'm fine. I'm like, okay, well, how's the Miata? And he had stacked this Miata into a parked truck or something. It had hit so hard that it completely tacoed the radiator. The filler neck completely snapped off. Early Miatas are known for crank wobble. The nose on the crankshaft is a little short, and then the whole harmonic balancer, the whole crank pulley wobbles and leaks oil, and it's a whole mess. This car was an 03, so it doesn't have crank wobble. This thing got hit so hard, it had crank wobble. I replaced the pulley, I put a new belt on it, put a radiator. I'm like, man, this thing starts. It runs really well. And I already had a nice NA Miata with a hard top, power windows, LSD, a really clean A package NA. And I got this haggard thing. I'm like, what do I do with it? I was thinking I could lift it. And there's a company called Pakamoto. They sell anything from a 3-inch bolt-on lift kit for Miata to big, crazy, long travel suspension, the off-roadster. This car really exists. I don't have $7K for a big lift kit like that. It's totally worth it, but it's not me. So I buy the 3-inch lift, I put it on this car, and when you have a Miata, a fun rear-wheel drive car, stick, and you can hang it out and whip it around, but also just drive over curbs and parking lots and not care, that becomes way more fun than a really clean example of a nice Miata. So I sell the nice Miata, I drive this thing, and I buy this in October, November, and immediately I gave up on the GTI. I'm like, nope, sell it all off, I'm done with it. I'm gonna play with this one now. We build this thing. I've got friends come over. My girlfriend came over. She doesn't work on cars that much. But when you take a Sharpie, just draw a line on the fender, hand her a Sawzall, and say, cut that line. You'll figure it out. What if I break it? Yeah, that's the point. Cut it, break it, figure it out. And so we lift this thing, put the lift kit on it, we welded the diff, made this awesome roof basket, this whole racket. It goes over the soft top. So you can still use the soft top. There's no point to have a Miata if you can't put the top down. With my nice A package car with the hard top, I took it off twice in 2 years of owning it. And you just put the top down. It's a Miata. You just reach up, you drop it down, you're good. With my big basket, it's a little more complicated. You gotta lift it, put the top down, go back on. But you can put a cooler full of beer on top of the soft top. We put all kinds of stuff in that car. So much fun. So we get this thing ready, and we go to do a gambler. And this is the first one that my partner had been on with me. And we weren't going to trailer it. We were just going to drive it. We're going out to Eastern Tennessee to Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary. That's where the campsite was. We drive this thing all the way up, and it's doing great, but it is disgustingly flooded. All of our stuff soaked. We put our tent up, and the tent just my old Boy Scout tent was not ready to be brought back out of service. Like it just you put it in, it just flooded. And we were going through having an awesome time. And there's this one checkpoint. I don't think you can get to it anymore, but it's called the Nemo Tunnel. It's a hand-carved train tunnel through the mountains in Wartburg, Tennessee. And they've since pulled the tracks up. They have an active rail line through a much nicer tunnel right beside it. But you can drive lifted vehicles, four-wheel drive Jeeps and stuff through this train tunnel. And of course we're going to send the Miata through that. Oh yeah. And so we sent the Miata through. It was an awesome time. Right outside of that, the road kind of did this little dip. And if you hit it at the right speed, you could jump. And so, we're kind of taking turns just jumping our cars, catching a foot of air, 2 feet of air. Nothing super crazy, but, send it. One of my really good friends, Dallas, he had a Subaru, and he's like, nah, I'm not jumping my Subaru. I drove out here from Texas. Yeah, I understand. I'm not breaking a car if I drive out here from Texas. So I throw him the keys to my Miata, and he jumps it. And then he kind of stops off to the side. He's like, hey, something's wrong. Either every gear in your transmission broke or your diff did. I'm like, oh no, what happened? And I crawl underneath, and then at some point in the weekend, probably one axle had already snapped. But the benefits of a welded diff is when one axle snaps, you still have another that's fully engaged. Well, the second axle snapped. So it's Sunday afternoon. We're like, what do we do? And there's an axle an hour east and an axle an hour west. And it was a mess. We ended up getting home Monday night at midnight. We drove the car back. It was a trooper. I had that car for 5 years. Throughout the course of other gamblers, we put somebody had abandoned a big pond liner, a 10-foot by 10-foot pond liner. We threw it on top of the car and then piled it full of trash. Drove it all the way back to this dumpster. We cut up a boat and just sawzawed and macheted a boat and put a big chunk of it on top of the car. That thing, it treated me so well. I actually went to buy yet another Miata, because if there's anything that gets my attention, it's disgusting Volkswagens and cheap Miatas. And so I was buying another one for my partner, and I was like, man, I need space at the house. I need at least one car to be somewhere else for a week. I've got 10 cars, just it's like a junkyard. So I loaned the lifted car back to the guy who used to own it, who had previously wrecked it. And he's driving it through town, minding his own business, and a taxi driver pulls out right in front of him. There's nothing he can do. He's doing the limit. He's in his lane. Taxi driver smokes him. He's fine. The car is not. It's a battle. Of course, they had State Farm, and then it wasn't registered as a taxi or insured as a taxi, so they didn't want to pay out. I fought insurance for 6 months on it. And they wrote me a $7,000 check for a totaled Miata. Or for basically a twice totaled Miata. That was a really good car.
When you get a ticket, it might look something like this, but the first thing that you need to do is take a picture of that ticket and send it to 305-305. That will get the ticket clinic on your case immediately. They've got brick and mortar offices in Georgia, Florida, and California, but they can help you find a ticket no matter where you get it in the United States by helping you find a local attorney that will do everything they can to help you avoid costly fines, insurance premium increases, points on your license, risk of suspension, even jail time. They've helped me out with this ticket and many others, and a lot of my friends as well. So check them out now at the link in the description below, or again, text your ticket to 305-305 to get the ticket clinic on your case. They are the perfect partner in your fight against any speeding ticket.